Chapter 1489 Worsening Matters 1. When Yi Qingtang looked up, all she saw was 3 skeletal dragons pulling an extremely familiar-looking black bone carriage across the sky. All 8 tribe leaders were present as they arrived on black skeletal dragons ahead of the black bone carriage. An aura of death permeated throughout instantly. Yi Qingtang's face fell the moment she saw the people from the Temple of Shadows. Even the Temple of Shadows came over to join in on the fun? Taking a peek at the black bone carriage, Yi Qingtang touched her unconcealed face and quietly hid behind Jiang Sun. Please don't let the person in that carriage be Ming Wang. Jiang Sun was unaware of Yi Qingtang's inner suffering and merely thought that Yi Qingtang behaved that way as she had never seen such a scale of events before. Jiang Sun comforted her immediately. Tang, be careful later. I never thought that news of this great demon's death would circulate to so many forces either. Even the Temple of Shadows appeared. Jiang Sun frowned slightly. She did not know the objective of this expedition to the land of infinite demons before coming. Had she known that it was for the great demon that just died, she probably would have stopped Yi Qingtang from coming no matter what. A recently dead great demon was enormously tempting to any clan. Every time a great demon died, the land of infinite demons would instantly turn into a living hell as all the clans would go all out to contest for great demons' treasures. At the thought of that, Jiang Sun could not help but look at Jiang Shangyu, and her frown deepened. With squinted eyes, the Cyclops Demon King glanced across everyone. Suddenly, it seemed to have sensed something as it looked towards a mountain peak not far away from the corner of its eye. Signs of cracks appeared on the mountain peak that used to stand tall. Huge boulders suddenly fell from the mountain peak, and a massive crack appeared on the mountain body as though it was forcefully being torn apart. With a loud crash, the entire mountain was split into half as giant figures slowly walked out from it. Those giants had extremely ferocious appearances. Yi Qingtang could not help but widen her eyes at the sight of those huge figures. The 12 Demon Kings. Those giant creatures were all of the Demon King rank. Including the Cyclops Demon King and 9-headed Demon Phoenix, there were 12 Demon Kings in total, all of whom were notorious in the central mainland for their brutality. Never would Yi Qingtang have thought that she would see the 7 Saints, Beastmaster, and even the Temple of Shadows and 12 Demon Kings gathered here today. Such a scene really left one dumbfounded. The Beastmasters and others' expressions changed slightly when the 12 Demon Kings appeared before them. As though there was a demon banquet, behind the 12 Demon Kings were countless little demons crowded together densely. But right at this moment, a thunderous sound rumbled in the sky. A 9-headed demon arrived slowly while pulling a large golden carriage hoisting a flag representing the ancient Yu clan. 30+ huge demons, each carrying an ancient Yu clan member, flaunted their wings as they stayed in formation in front of the golden carriage. The ancient Yu clan actually mobilized over 30 elders? Jiang Sun, who was beside Yi Qingtang, noticed the ancient Yu clan's troops. Suspecting that she was blind, she felt her eyes pop open. Chapter 1490 Worsening Matters 2. Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes slightly as she glanced across the ancient Yu clan troop. She realized that the elder she met the other time in the first mainland was not present. However, her heart suddenly leaped. The ancient Yu clan elder she met in the first mainland was in the heavenly venerate realm, but now, casting a glance, Yi Qingtang realized that the 30+ ancient Yu clan elders that appeared in the land of infinite demons were several times more powerful than that person. It's little Yu Yun. Yi Qingtang's heart sank. After the ancient Yu clan obtained little Yu Yun, their skills increased tremendously. However, the speed of this increase was far beyond her initial predictions. The arrival of the ancient Yu clan attracted the attention of other forces as well. The Cloud Valley clan and Southern Peak clan, which crossed paths with the Jiang family earlier on, also appeared here, and they were taken aback when they saw the ancient Yu clan elders. They were clearly flabbergasted by the dramatic increase of ancient Yu clan skills. I heard that the ancient Yu clan was up to some things recently. So it's their increase in skills. It seems that they've already used the spiritual abode they obtained from the first mainland. Jiang Sun scoffed, though it was not the time to look at ancient Yu clan right now. Just as Jiang Sun was pondering, a loud voice suddenly rang. Ancient Yu clan, I didn't expect you all to be here today as well. A figure suddenly walked out from the dense forest of the land of infinite demons. Donned in a long black robe, it was a 15 or 16-year-old teen with close to 100 people following behind him. His gaze turned cold immediately when he saw the Ancient Yu clan troop in the sky. That is, Yi Qingtang looked at that teen uncertainly as she vaguely felt a sense of familiarity. Jiang Sun said softly, that is Bai Lishi, one of the top geniuses of the younger generation in the central mainland. He may only be 16 years old, but he is already at the peak of the heavenly venerate. Given his endowment, he probably can advance to the holy venerate realm before 20. A holy venerate before the age of 20? Surprise flashed across Yi Qingtang's eyes. She stared at that youth again, and only then did she realize why he felt familiar. In her previous life, Bai Lishi was one of the top 10 honor roll geniuses in the central mainland alongside Beidou Demon Lord. Yi Qingtang met Bai Lishi once due to Beidou Demon Lord, but Bai Lishi was much older back then. Anyone from the younger generation who could enter the central mainland's honor roll list in her previous life was known to be extraordinarily talented. Yi Qingtang needed 300 years to enter the holy venerate realm, but Bai Lishi, at age 16, was only one step away from the holy venerate realm. Bai Lishi seemed to have some enmity with the Ancient Yu clan, but he did not act impulsively. Such was actually the case with others as well. Many forces in the scene had some grudges against each other, but at this moment, all of the powerful figures seemed to have some sort of tacit understanding. Thus, no one made a move. Our objective is the same today, and it is not the time to be settling our private feuds right now. Seizing the great demon as quickly as possible is the key instead, the Beastmaster said suddenly after remaining silent all this while. As he spoke, his eyes specifically swept across the Demon Kings, Temple of Shadows, and forces of other alien races. Chapter 1491 Worsening Matters 3 Everyone's goal was the same this time. Everyone, regardless of whether they were a part of the Demon Kings, alien races including the Temple of Shadows, the Ancient Yu clan, or the Jiang family, was here to seize the great demon. And at this instant, everyone present seemed to have a certain tacit understanding. There was no intention to attack others, and everyone was merely on their guard against each other. Bai Lishi scoffed but did not take further action. It was clear that while he was young, he knew that it was not the right time to settle scores with the Ancient Yu clan. His eyes swept across the surroundings, and he snickered. Since we have the same goal, isn't it time for the friends hidden in the dark to appear? Everyone was dumbfounded by what Bai Lishi said. Nonetheless, the Jiang family and Ancient Yu clan had a calm composure. Moments later, several figures suddenly darted across the sky and appeared before everyone. From a corner, Yi Qingtang looked up at those figures in the sky and was taken aback. She actually spotted a familiar figure among those people. There was a pretty lady who had a hint of impatience on her pale complexion. She stood behind an elderly with a frown, though she disregarded everyone at the scene with plain arrogance. It's her. Yi Qingtang was surprised to see that lady in green. Wasn't that lady none other than the lady in green whose mutated heavenly demon bloodline was counter-absorbed by Yi Qingtang at the inheritance of the divine phoenix back then? She'd actually appear here? Yi Qingtang's eyes twitched uncontrollably, and her head began aching. First, the Temple of Shadows. Now, even this lady in green appeared. What kind of play is this? However, Yi Qingtang very quickly realized that something was off about the situation. Ling Yan told her that the lady in green went to the second domain when young, yet that lady appeared with a group of people here. Yi Qingtang instinctively looked towards the people beside the lady in green. After a glance, she shockingly discovered that those people were all above the holy venerate realm. Moreover, their faces were very foreign to Yi Qingtang. If they were powerful figures from the central mainland, there would definitely be one or two familiar faces, but all of them were more than foreign. Could they be from the second domain? So it's people from the second domain. Bai Lix's lips curled into a snicker when he saw the lady in green. The great demon even attracted people from the second domain. The powerful figures from the second domain smiled briefly without uttering a word as they stood in the air, merely casting an arrogant glance that spelled belittlement. The corpse of the Frosty Snow Mountain's great demon was already found, but with so many forces gathered here, the ownership of the great demon would definitely be a problem. At this instant, the 10 demon kings gathered together, and their size was already a shuddering sight. Standing between the masses and the great demon, their huge bodies formed a tall wall as an extremely obscure demon language filled the air. Moments later, the Cyclops demon king suddenly stood forward, and its fierce eye glanced across the masses before it spoke slowly in the rather unfamiliar human language. This great demon is of our race, and its death has nothing to do with you all. Please leave immediately. Chapter 1492 Overreaching 1. The Cyclops Demon King was the only one among all the demon kings that could understand some human speech. His speech was stiff, but his tone was very hostile. This big demon belonged to their demon clan. It had nothing to do with humans and other clans even after it was dead. Everyone present frowned when they heard the Cyclops Demon King's words. The moment the Cyclops Demon King finished speaking, a clear voice suddenly rang out from the ancient U clan's golden sedan. What a joke! Does the land of infinite demons belong to the demon clan? On what basis do you order us to leave? The voice sounded fairly young. They did not know who was inside the sedan, but at that moment, it spoke for all the human clans present. They had come to the land of infinite demons for the sake of the big demon, yet now the demon king wanted them to leave? He could dream on. If you refuse to leave, don't blame us for not holding back anymore. The leather armor on the Cyclops Demon King's back suddenly rose, and a strong demonic aura started to spread around him. You cannot possibly expect us to leave. If you want to fight, well, fight you to the end. Jiang Shangyu, who had yet to speak, suddenly leaped upwards into the void. He looked down on the group of demon kings from his vantage point and spoke coldly. In recent times, there had been much friction between the ancient Yu clan and the Jiang family. But at that moment, no matter what dissension there was between these human powers, they would certainly present a united front before these alien races and the demon kings. The ancient Yu clan and the domain monarch's Jiang family had already made their stance clear. The other powers also had similar intentions. As for the Temple of Shadows, the tribe leaders looked on coolly without saying anything. However, these alien races probably had the same intentions. It would be no easy task for the Demon King to force them to leave. The big demon's flesh and grave goods were so enticing. Why would anyone leave? The Cyclops Demon King let out a low roar of rage. The other Demon King's expressions also grew sinister. The horde of small demons gave a deafening bellow that shook the heavens, and the entire mountain range seemed to quiver at the sound. The ancient Yu clan, the Jiang family, and the other human forces did not pale in comparison. In a moment, spirit energy filled the air, and rays of light shone among the humans. The two forces collided in midair. It seemed as though an interracial bloodbath would begin at any moment. However, Yi Qingtang remained calm as she looked at this volatile situation. Tang, don't be scared. Jiang Sun was worried that Yi Qingtang would be shocked by the radiating power, and spoke to console her. Yi Qingtang nodded obediently, but her voice did not waver. Grand Aunt, I'm not afraid. Yi Qingtang had lived 300 years in her previous life. How could a battle like this frighten her? Although the demon kings and the human forces seemed all set for a showdown, a closer look revealed that neither side would act rashly. These intimidation techniques merely kept both sides in check and on their toes. It was actually an impasse. Neither the humans, the aliens, nor the demon kings would be the first to start the battle. It would be best if the opponent could be intimidated into retreating. But then the unexpected happened. Yi Qingtang was watching the powerful forces spoiling for a fight and shouting furiously at each other, but in the void above, those from the second domain were looking impatient. Bunch of beasts. What is there to talk about? We certainly want that big demon. A tall man from the second domain suddenly laughed frostily. He rushed downwards, attempting to leap over the demon kings and head towards the body of the big demon. Chapter 1493 Overreaching 2 But the moment the man moved, rage flashed across the eye of the Cyclops Demon King, who was still shouting harshly across the void. His huge body suddenly doubled in size, and his gigantic hands were instantly covered with a beam of black light. He raised his huge palms with a roar and swatted at the powerful cultivator from the second domain. The powerful cultivator from the second domain smiled scornfully when he saw the Demon King make his move. He looked on disdainfully as he tried to raise his sword to slash the Cyclops Demon King's palm, only to realize that his sword blade immediately shattered upon impact. The leather armor on the Cyclops Demon King's arm was actually hundreds of times harder than meteoric iron. Crash! There was a tremendous crash, and the Cyclops Demon King simply smacked the stunned powerful cultivator from the second domain straight into the ground. With a loud smash, the Cyclops Demon King's palm crushed the powerful cultivator from the second domain. A large patch of blood, mixed with mangled flesh, oozed from between the Cyclops Demon King's fingers. The strong scent of blood immediately spread to everyone's nostrils. The Cyclops Demon King slowly opened his massive mouth, his ugly face looking even more sinister. Everyone stood there stunned as they watched the Cyclops Demon King kill the powerful cultivator from the second domain with a single blow. Many of them started to frown. Hee. A bone-chilling laugh came from the Cyclops Demon King's mouth. He slowly raised his hands. The flesh in his huge palms was mangled. The sticky mess of flesh and blood in his hands slowly dripped into the pool of blood. The old man who was the leader of the second domain frowned slightly. The green-robed girl standing behind him had a strange expression. Overreached himself, the Cyclops demon said mockingly in his stiff human speech. He opened his mouth and roared. If you don't go, you will end up like him. The Cyclops Demon King narrowed his single eye and swept a cold look at the other races present. Jiang Shangyu frowned slightly. The Cyclops Demon King was even more powerful than legends had it. As the Cyclops Demon King threatened them, all the Demon Kings and small demons present let out a deafening roar, as if in agreement. The roar shook the area. The force of it poured forth like rushing waters of a waterfall. Master, this Demon King's power. The green-robed girl in the void showed no signs of pity when she saw the Cyclops Demon King kill her companion with a single blow. She only looked at the old man in front of her. The old man's expression did not change. To them, it was as if their companion's death was no more than a cool breeze brushing past them. He was careless. It was no one else's fault. The old man said gravely, with only a hint of compassion. The Demon King was incredibly powerful. His skin was as tough as bronze, and his bones as hard as iron. The Cyclops Demon King smashed one fist on the mountain. The mountain peak was instantly crushed to smithereens. He clearly intended to intimidate them. Jiang Sun frowned as she looked at this hostile Demon King. Her brows deeply furrowed, and she subconsciously moved to guard Yi Qingteng, who was behind her, a little more carefully. The Cyclops Demon King's abilities were remarkable. Even she was no match for him. Everyone, this Demon King seems to refuse to relinquish this big demon. What should we do? The Beast Master looked at everyone. The Cyclops Demon King had already demonstrated that he was ready to drive them off. If this situation continued to drag on, who knew when it would end? Overreaching 3 The big demon's body was decomposing rapidly. If this continued to drag on, they would miss the optimal timing even if they managed to seize the big demon's body. By then, all the major forces had grasped the situation. They exchanged glances and made up their minds. We are definitely taking this big demon. The person in the ancient Yu clan's golden carriage spoke once more. The moment he spoke, a golden glow suddenly shimmered around the 30+ elders of the ancient Yu clan. Their aura instantly multiplied. In a moment, all the human forces were ready for battle. The 8 tribe leaders from the Temple of Shadows let out deafening roars. The 12 demon kings thundered as the little demons behind them bayed, poised to attack. The battle was imminent. When Yi Yu saw the scene unfold, she subconsciously retreated by a step. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on the battle that was about to erupt. Her movements did not seem to attract any attention. But two people noticed Yi Yu's retreat. One of them was Yi Qingtang. She glanced at Yi Yu, and a cold smile crossed her lips. But she looked away, only to see that Jiang Qi, who had remained silent all this while, cast a calm and fleeting glance at Yi Yu. It was just a glance, and Jiang Qi remained expressionless. However, a faint look of disdain seemed to surface in his eyes. The moment Jiang Qi looked away, the spirit energy around him rose to its peak. The strength of his aura shocked Yi Qingtang. This Jiang Qi is no less powerful than Bai Lishi? At that point, Yi Qingtang finally understood why Jiang Qi had not said a single word to anyone during their journey. To Jiang Qi, all of them probably did not exist. Compared to his talent, the little ability that Yi Yu and the others possessed was laughable. The battle was about to begin. All sides were fully prepared. The Cyclops Demon King led the charge. The demonic aura around him seemed to transform into a gigantic vortex that reached the sky. But the moment the Cyclops Demon King charged forward, the mountain range behind the demon hordes suddenly began to quake violently. Behind the mist-covered mountain peaks, a black palm suddenly appeared. It was so huge that it blotted out the sun. Only for an instant. The huge black palm was large enough to smash the mountains into pieces. It seemed to rise straight out of the ground behind the mountain peaks, and it suddenly came crashing down. A gale blew as the huge palm swept through the entire battlefield as countless boulders were sent flying towards the horizon. The gale swept up the flowing river, and the entire river instantly dried up. Boulders, the river, all of these were mixed together by the wild wind. Everyone widened their eyes as the huge palm that seemed to cover the entire sky descended towards the ground. The Cyclops Demon King and the horde of small demons only had enough time to sense a suffocating demonic aura surge forth from behind them. Before they could turn around, the gigantic black shadow engulfed them. Boom! The huge palm crushed the Cyclops Demon King and all the small demons. The force of the impact caused the entire ground to sink by a few meters. What's going on? Jiang Shangyu looked startled. He looked over only to see that the supposedly dead big demon had suddenly started to move. As the body of the big demon arose, the surrounding mountain peaks, ones that touched the clouds, were instantly crushed into smithereens. Chapter 1495 Big Demon 1. The roaring noise continued to reverberate in their ears. It looked as if the huge body would crush the mountain range. They had been ready to fight, but now, they stiffened and looked at the gigantic creature slowly rising from the ground. Isn't dead? The big demon isn't dead? Jiang Sun had an extremely ugly expression. The Cyclops Demon King was so powerful, yet the big demon had crushed him into meat paste before their eyes with one blow. A low growl emerged from behind the mountains. They saw a huge black figure slowly arise, and a gigantic head emerged from behind the mountain peaks. With a pair of crimson eyes holding vertical pupils that were as large as moons, the huge figure swept a look across every living thing present. The cry of a phoenix suddenly arose. The nine-headed demon phoenix was so aggressive earlier, but the instant it saw the big demon return from the dead, it spread its wings and urgently tried to flee this hellish place. But before the nine-headed demon phoenix could get far, a scarlet tongue suddenly shot out from behind the mountains. The mucus-covered tongue swept across the horizon and swept up the nine-headed demon phoenix, which was hundreds of meters long, and countless flying small demons. They were swiftly dragged behind the mountain peaks and vanished. A crisp, crunching noise instantly rose from behind the mountains. They could vaguely see blood flying and splattering the half-hidden head. When Yi Qingtang saw this shocking scene, she almost instantaneously grabbed the stunned Jiang Sun, turned, and ran. The big demon of the frosty snow mountains was still alive. No one would have thought that the big demon they were fighting for was still alive. It had been lying motionlessly on the ground, as if waiting to swallow those who wanted to steal its treasure. Damn it, the big demon was pretending to be dead. It's going to seize the opportunity to kill us. The ambitious crowd finally realized that danger was imminent. The big demon was as intelligent as any of them. In fact, it was smarter than most people. This big demon had not died at all. It had deliberately crouched there without moving so that everyone would think it was dead, so that their greedy natures would emerge. But they did not know that. Their greed had brought death upon their heads. Everyone who had intended to steal the big demon's treasure now had a different expression. They hurriedly fled in all directions. Even the old man from the second domain immediately led his companions and flew to escape the area. No ordinary person could withstand the power of the big demon. Even the demon kings submitted to the big demon and acknowledged it as sovereign. But a moment later, the big demon finally straightened up. The endless mountain range looked like pathetic little hills beneath its feet. The big demon's 6 gigantic claws easily strode over the mountain peaks. Sending a wild gale with every move, the big demon instantly flattened the sturdy mountains. Debris showered down from the sky like rain, killing the horde of small demons at the foot of the mountain. Countless bodies piled up to form a mound at the foot of the mountains. Blood flowed like rivers. The moment the big demon stood up, its body was no longer in everyone's line of sight. Its huge head plunged into the clouds. And only its 6 gigantic claws remained in sight. The rest of its body was covered by the clouds. Chapter 1496 Big Demon to Roar. Reverberating through the clouds, the roar was so loud that it could be heard for hundreds of miles around. The moment the big demon roared in rage, everyone who was flying through the void fell from the sky as if a boulder had struck their chests. No matter whether they were powerful cultivators or holy venerates, to the big demon, they were as insignificant as insects. Yi Qingtang inwardly berated them all as she fled with Jiang Sun in tow. They knew that the big demon was extraordinarily powerful, yet they did not even check if the big demon was dead before swarming over. Weren't they seeking their own deaths? One must know that any big demon had the power to destroy any mainland in the first domain. No other creature could compare to the might it demonstrated when it gulped down 100,000 people in one mouthful. Legends had it that big demons were servants of the God Fiend. They submitted to the God Fiend and were the most similar to the God Fiend. Because of their eccentric natures, most of the big demons in the mainland kept each other in check, and the majority of them lived in seclusion. Otherwise, the mainland would have been utterly destroyed long ago. Everyone lusted over the treasure that the big demons possessed, but were frightened of their power. Thus, they only dared to steal the big demon's grave goods after they died. At that moment, Yi Qingtang was soaked in cold sweat. If this big demon was truly enraged, none of them here would survive. By then, Jiang Sun had recovered his wits. He turned to see the destruction behind him, but what he saw caused his hair to stand on end. The big demon, who stood over the clouds completely, covered the sky, and darkness fell over everyone. The mountain range had already been flattened by the big demon's gigantic claws with countless bodies laying among the debris. Demons, humans, aliens. To the big demon, all living things were despicable thieves. These living things who tried to steal its treasure were about to die under its claws. Ah! Tragic screams, accompanied by ear-splitting explosions, reverberated through the air. Yi Qingtang watched as the 7 saints of the snow zone fell from the void at the big demon's roar. Before they could get up, they were mangled by the giant claws. The big demon's scarlet eyes looked down on the thieves from the clouds. The 2 blood-red eyes were like 2 red moons, glaring at all these creatures. Beams of light shone from among the humans. Surrounded by death, everyone now brought out their Dharma treasures to try to flee as far as possible. But before they could use their Dharma treasures, a dark fog suddenly spread out from the big demon. The fog moved with the speed of lightning and spread 100 miles around. The instant it covered the area, it formed a huge barrier against the external world, enclosing the entire area within itself. The powerful cultivators and demon kings who were trying to flee suddenly realized that the Dharma treasures in their hands seemed to lose their spirit energy. No matter how they tried, the Dharma treasures seemed to have lost their effectiveness and could not be activated. Dharma blocking barrier. Yi Qingtang frowned as she looked at the area enclosed by the black fog. The Dharma blocking barrier was one of the Dharma spells that the big demons specialized in. Any Dharma treasure within the Dharma blocking barrier would instantly lose its effectiveness. unless it was a true divine arcane supreme Dharma treasure. Otherwise, it was as useless as a pile of scrap metal when it was within the Dharma blocking barrier. Chapter 1497 Big Demon 3 The moment the Dharma blocking barrier came into effect, everyone despaired. The demon clearly wanted to trap and kill them all here. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. She had intended to flee for some distance, and then use the talisman that Moe had left her to try escaping with Jiang Sun. But the moment the Dharma blocking barrier was activated, the talisman became useless. The others had realized this point as well. Everyone had an ugly expression as they looked at the fog that spanned across 100 miles. It won't let any of us off. Jiang Shangyu frowned deeply. As he looked at the chaotic scene, he flew upwards and slowly drew closer to the big demon. The big demon had left a trail of flattened vegetation and mountains in its wake. Blood seeped out from beneath the mud. Who knew how many creatures had been trodden into the ground by the big demon? At that moment, all the demon kings had terrible expressions. They had intended to enjoy the big demon's treasures after battling the humans and alien races. Who would have thought that they would soon become mere pieces of food in the big demon's stomach? We'll all be dead if we continue fleeing like that. The big demon clearly does not intend to let us live. Why don't we fight? Perhaps this will give us a chance of survival. The person in the ancient Yu clan's golden carriage spoke once more. However, his tone was now graver. Beastmaster, now that the Cyclops Demon King is dead, you are the only one who understands demon language. Can I trouble you to speak to those demon kings? Jiang Shangyu frowned slightly. Now, joining forces was their only hope of withstanding the big demon king. At that moment, the Beastmaster was in a sorry state. The big demon had crushed his steed with a single bite. He was fortunate enough to escape, but he had been affected by the big demon's demonic aura, and he was still unsteady on his feet. However, at that moment, the Beastmaster could not be bothered about his state, sorry or otherwise. He walked towards the demon kings, who stood there with their ugly expressions. Unintelligible demonic words emerged from his mouth as he tried his best to communicate with these demon kings. The demon kings had clearly been frightened by the big demon. When they heard the Beastmaster's words, the demon king's expressions grew complicated. Jiang Shangyu frowned deeply as he watched an elder from the ancient Yu clan walk over. The two exchanged glances and both understood the other's intentions. No matter how fraught relations were between the Jiang family and the ancient Yu clan, at this moment, they would face the enemy together and fight for their lives. Friends from the Jiang family. The elder from the ancient Yu clan stepped forward. Jiang Shangyu raised his hand slightly. We are now in grave danger. I don't know if you have heard the news from the Temple of Shadows, the elder from the ancient Yu clan said. Jiang Shangyu was startled, and he raised his eyes to the void to look at the troops from the Temple of Shadows. Everyone had been affected by the big demon's roar of rage and were unable to remain in the void. However, the undead from the Temple of Shadows seemed unaffected by the big demon's sonic waves. Even so, only one of the 3 skeletal dragons from the Temple of Shadows remained. The steeds of the 8 tribe leaders had all met their end in the big demon's mouth. What are you trying to say? Jiang Shangyu turned to look at the elder from the ancient Yu clan, his brow furrowed. Why was the elder from the ancient Yu clan asking him if he knew about what had happened in the Temple of Shadows at a time like this? What did it have to do with their current situation? Did you know that the Holy Lord of the Temple of Shadows has returned? The elder from the ancient Yu clan asked. Big Demon 4 Jiang Shangyu was stunned by these words. What did you say? The Holy Lord of Shadows is back? Jiang Shangyu's eyes were filled with surprise. The Holy Lord of Shadows had vanished for many years. Many forces in central mainland assumed that the Holy Lord of Shadows had died quietly. It's absolutely true. An elder from my clan saw the Holy Lord of Shadows in the Eternal Dynasty. Now, the forces from the Temple of Shadows are here, together with all 8 tribe leaders. The Holy Lord of Shadows might be in the Blackbone carriage, the elder from the ancient Yu clan said. They had tried to make trouble for Ling Yen in the Eternal Dynasty, but the Holy Lord of Shadows had unexpectedly intervened, preventing them from attaining their goal. From this incident, they had learned that the Holy Lord of Shadows had returned. Jiang Shangyu's expression grew grave. Jiang Shangyu had not received news of the Holy Lord of Shadows' return, but at this moment, the ancient Yu clan certainly would not be speaking carelessly. Jiang Shangyu's gaze turned once more to the black bone carriage in the void. Could the Holy Lord of Shadows really be sitting in the black bone carriage? Although the Holy Lord of Shadows had vanished for a long time, she was still the most important person in Central Mainland. Legends had it that she had fought with one of the big demons in Central Mainland, and although they had reached an impasse, her presence today meant they might have a greater chance of winning. Jiang Shangyu and the elder from the ancient Yu clan quietly discussed whether to negotiate an alliance with the Temple of Shadows. While they were talking, Yi Qingtang, who was standing in the corner, heard every word. The Holy Lord of Shadows? Now, Yi Qingtang did not know whether to laugh or to cry. If circumstances had not forbidden it, she would tell the ancient Yu clan and Jiang Shangyu to forget about it. The Holy Lord of Shadows, that the ancient Yu clan had encountered, was right here. Where would they go to find another? Although those were her thoughts, Yi Qingtang took a handkerchief and swiftly covered her face. Besides other considerations, many of her acquaintances were currently present. Whether it was the Temple of Shadows or the green-robed girl, her face would be fresh in their memories. Perhaps they had not noticed her when they were fleeing just now, but if they saw her face now, things would get interesting. The green-robed girl and the 8 tribe leaders would kill her without the big demon needing to act. Yi Qingtang had not forgotten that the 8 tribe leaders were still strongly suspicious of her identity as the Holy Lord of Shadows. A moment later, Jiang Shangyu and the elder from the ancient Yu clan seemed to come to a decision. As the big demon's sonic waves dissipated, the two seized the opportunity to fly upwards and headed straight for the group from the Temple of Shadows. Yi Qingtang did not know what Jiang Shangyu and the Temple of Shadows said, but they seemed to come to some sort of agreement. Everyone was forming alliances, but the big demon was getting closer. In a moment, the area that the big demon's feet passed over was a gory mess. The strong scent of blood filled the air, accompanied by the big demon's roars. It looked like hell on earth. The various forces that had been fighting each other earlier now cooperated to fight for a chance to survive. The troops from every side used their killing moves. Even the demon kings exerted themselves fully. However, to the big demon, their combined efforts were pathetic. More and more people fell, and the big demon's tongue drew countless small demons into its mouth. Chapter 1499 Big Demon 5 As the big demon chewed on its food, blood spurted out and soaked its entire surroundings, filling the dried river with blood. The alliance that was formed just now was immediately destroyed after the big demon rampaged. A few demon kings were swallowed by the big demon, and about 10 elders from the ancient Yu clan were smashed under its paw. Both the Jiang family and the Temple of Shadows suffered great losses. The rest were in even more disastrous states. Despair filled everyone's minds at that instant. Yi Qingtang's veil was stained red by the blood. Jiang Sun was injured as well since he tried to protect her. However, even after such a horrifying fight, the big demon was not injured at all. The wound on its body that was a few meters deep did not even penetrate its outer layer of skin. Those who remained, including the powerful figures that came from the second domain, could not stay calm as they saw the big demon approaching. Boom! The big demon crushed the surrounding mountains and rivers. Its head was covered by the clouds, and only pieces of flesh dropped from the clouds as it chewed. The flesh of the other demons smashed onto the ground in front of everyone. No one expected the situation to develop in such a way. Everyone was here to fight for the big demon's corpse and treasures, but soon, they would be a part of the lump of flesh in its mouth. However, when everyone was almost engulfed by the feeling of despair, the big demon suddenly stopped. What happened? Jiang Sun's guard was up as he stared at the big demon. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes and planned to figure out what happened. The giant body that was covered by the clouds suddenly fell down. Its head slammed onto the mountain ridges and flattened them. No one was prepared for the big demon's fall. Many were crushed as it collapsed. The big demon fell down in front of everyone, and its body was like a huge mountain one could not climb over. Now, everyone managed to see its appearance. "Is it dead?" someone asked while trembling. Everyone gazed at the body of the big demon. The big demon would only head toward the land of infinite demons when it was about to die. This was why everyone rushed over after hearing about the news, but no one expected it to be still conscious and alive. Now, was it trying to prank everyone again, or was it really dead? No one could figure that out. The demon kings who survived by luck had very unpleasant expressions. They stared at the big demon cautiously and used their demonic air to probe the big demon. No one dared to move at all. After a long while, the big demon did not move, so someone took the courage and went forward. He then realized that the big demon was really dead. Everyone sighed in relief after knowing that. Most of them had been to the land of infinite demons countless times, and this was the first time they encountered a living big demon. If it was alive for a while more, all of them would be dead now. The situation was getting strange after the big demon died. Chapter 1500 Big Demon 6 The alliances that were formed because of the big demon divided after its death. They now became opponents instead of allies. A few demon kings rolled their eyes and were about to fight for the big demon's body as they were the closest to it. The faces of humans and members of the alien races darkened when they saw the demon king's movement. They immediately dashed forward. However, the moment everyone moved, an intense and horrifying demonic aura suddenly spread out in the surroundings. The demon kings trembled as they sensed the intense and fierce demonic air. This demonic aura was similar to the dead big demons. There was no more greed in the demon king's eyes. They changed their direction and immediately ran away. What's that? The rest were not as sensitive to the demonic air as the demon kings. When they sensed something strange, the demon kings had already disappeared. Suddenly, the sun was covered by a huge mass. Everyone lifted up their heads to see a creature approaching in the air. With the creature hovering above them, no one could see any part of the sky. That's another big demon? Yi Qingtang felt her head explode when she saw the scale of the creature vaguely among the clouds. Barely managing to survive from the last demon, everyone again felt despair when they noticed the big demon hiding in the clouds. The last one was just dead, and now there was another one? They had no clue where this big demon came from. That was the reason why those demon kings disappeared almost instantly. No one dared to escape now, and they all froze at where they were. The shadow stopped right above the dead big demon. Everyone stared at the shadow nervously. A huge head suddenly appeared from the clouds, and before everyone could see its head clearly, it opened its giant mouth and bit onto the back of the dead big demon. Its sharp teeth bit through the hard skin and flesh. The moment it took the bite, a huge amount of blood spurted out from the wound. The blood flowed down like a waterfall and formed a river of blood under everyone's feet. The big demon made a deep roar. It lifted the body of the dead big demon and flew into the sky. The giant body was dragged up into the clouds. Blood poured down like rain instantly and landed on everyone's body. The big demon did not seem to be bothered by the rest of them here. It bit the body and flew away. Everyone was soaked in cold sweat as they stared at the disappearing shadow. It seemed that they had just escaped from hell again. The land of infinite demons was extremely dangerous. No one knew how many big demons hid here. It would be a gamble of death or survival if they encountered one. This time, they were lucky that the second big demon was only interested in the body of its own clan member. Otherwise, everyone here combined might not even be enough to fill its mouth. The big demon's ability would level up if they consumed members of their own clan. Everyone here was incomparable with that body, and the big demon might not even notice their presence. Chapter 1501 Treasures 1 Though everyone wanted to fight for the big demon's body, no one dared to fight with the other big demon. They all shivered in fear as the ground in front of them was covered by a sea of blood. No one wanted to be involved in the fight between big demons. Everyone was disappointed as the big demon's body was gone. However, they were attracted to a shimmering point in the mess. There was a huge palace standing behind the crushed mountain. The palace was built out of demon bones, which shined under the sunlight. That's The palace of the Frosty Snow Mountain's big demon? The Beastmaster's eyes sparkled as it stared at the palace. Before a big demon was about to die, it would bring all its treasures and build a palace with its demonic power. After it passed away, its body would rot into the palace. This would trigger the demonic air in the palace, and the entire structure would sink into the ground, burying it underneath forever. In the past, when people from different clans and forces came to the land of infinite demons to look for big demons, all the big demons there had died a long time ago. Their palaces were all buried under the ground, and it took a large amount of time and energy to look for them. The big demon was chasing and killing everyone, so it was some distance apart from its palace when it died. Its body was then taken away by another big demon, so the mechanism that controlled the movement of the palace was not triggered. Everyone's expression changed instantly. They all rushed towards the palace at the fastest speed without any extra talk. Jiang Sun and Yi Qingtang also followed. However, Yi Qingtang noticed that there were many figures appearing from different directions as she was flying towards the palace. All of them were heading towards the same place as well. There were other powerful figures hiding in the area? Yi Qingtang was shocked, but she did not slow down at all. The palace of the big demon contained all treasures it had in its life. It was a huge temptation to anyone. The palace was too large for them to see its full structure, but it was obvious to tell how many treasures were inside. People from all forces rushed into the palace as fast as they could. It was impossible for one force to own all the treasures, so they could only find and claim the most valuable treasures within the shortest time. Boom! The door of the palace was opened by force. Countless broken bones flew out. About 100 people had entered the palace within the blink of an eye. Yi Qingtang slowed down as Jiang Sun was injured. Though she also desired the treasures, she needed to protect Jiang Sun. But everyone, including the Jiang family, all aimed at the palace. Soon, Yi Qingtang entered the huge palace. The scene in front of them was astonishing. There were mountains of gold and treasure in the palace. Everyone was dazzled by the scene. This is the Eternity Bottle? In shock, the Beastmaster picked up a jade bottle that was about an arm's length. The Eternity Bottle could transform all kinds of water into curing holy water. It could detoxify all poisons and disperse all heretic air. It was really a rare Dharma treasure. Chapter 1502 Treasures 2. The Beastmaster was still in shock after finding the Eternity Bottle. A white-haired elder, who came along with the lady in green, picked up a ring from a pile of diamonds. This ring was not made of silver or gold. There was a diamond that glimmered in 7 colors of light on the ring. The radiances were splendid and attractive. Master, this is... The lady in green took a glimpse at the ring and looked towards the elder with confusion. It's the Moon Goddess ring. A smile emerged in the elder's eyes. According to the legend, the Moon Goddess ring contained a trace of the Moon Goddess power before she passed away. Normal people could not even imagine what power from a goddess contained. If this power was released, it could destroy any mainland in the first domain. If someone decided to wear the ring, they would be nurtured under the power of the Moon Goddess during cultivation. The effect of that was obvious. The elder wore the ring on his finger under the gaze of the lady in green, but he did not realize that a strange look flashed across her eyes. Besides the Beastmaster and the elder from the second domain, many people found other long-lost Dharma treasures from a few thousand to tens of thousands of years ago. The big demon of the Frosty Snow Mountains had lived for at least 10,000 years. It had taken an incredible amount of treasure in its lifetime. After seeing the treasure the big demon owned, Yi Qingtang understood the reason why people from different forces all rushed here. She scanned through the crowd in front of her and was shocked by what she saw. Besides those who were chased by the big demon, there were many more powerful figures appearing in the hall. There were even people from the second domain. Out of all those people, Yi Qingtang was attracted by a tiny figure. There was a pretty little girl who was about 5 to 6 years old. She had round and big eyes and was dressed in a lilac dress that made her seem more adorable. There were many women following behind the little girl. The women all wore the same type of mask to cover their faces, and they all followed silently behind the girl. It felt a little strange that a little girl would appear here with the rest of the malicious forces. No one would expect there to be any link between the girl and any group here based on her tiny arms and legs. However, no one dared to provoke the innocent little girl. Celestial Fairy from the Purple Palace. Yi Qingtang recognized the girl's identity. The Purple Palace was the most powerful force in the second domain. Even though she appeared to be only 5 or 6, the Celestial Fairy was more than 10,000 years old. Having cultivated a group of heretical techniques when she was young, she was affected by that process and could not grow anymore. The Purple Palace was involved in the battle between the powerful figures from the second domain and the central mainland, so they were famous in the central mainland now. Yi Qingtang looked away and was taken aback by the number of powerful figures here. The little white tiger suddenly jumped out of her arms and seemed to be smelling something. Its round and tiny body dashed into a pile of treasure. Fiend celestial beasts had a better sense of smell and were more sensitive to Dharma artifacts. Yi Qingtang followed the little white tiger secretly while everyone else was digging for treasures. Chapter 1503 Treasures 3 The little white tiger walked through the main hall that was full of treasure and stopped at a dull corner of the hall. There were many jewels and pearls with dazzling brightness, but the little white tiger used its paws to dig a hole in the pile of jewelry. An old and sealed box under all the jewelry appeared in front of Yi Qingtang. There's good stuff inside. I can smell them. The little white tiger touched the box and said confidently. Yi Qingtang's lips twitched as she stared at the little white tiger, who was so proud of itself. But she believed in the little white tiger's decision. She looked around and saw that all the other people were busy digging for treasures, and no one noticed her. She then walked forward and opened the box slowly. As the box was opened, a pungent smell came out of it. The little white tiger immediately jumped backward from the stink. How can it stink so much? The little white tiger covered its nose and its mouth, and its eyes were wide open. The little white tiger was not able to detect that smell before it was opened. Yi Qingtang held her breath and opened the box fully. There were 3 dusty items lying in the box. Besides those, there were many black worms that were as thick as fingers crawling inside. The black worms crawled among each other. It was surprising that they were still alive. They seemed to be invigorated by the air and crawled out of the box one by one. Yi Qingtang could feel the goosebumps on her body. After all the black worms crawled out of the box, the 3 items that were previously covered by the black worms revealed themselves in front of Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang opened her eyes wide instantly. There were 3 black Dharma treasures in the box. She had never seen any of these Dharma treasures before, but she could feel the intense aura from them. Yi Qingtang was shocked by the black Dharma treasure in the middle. She could see a mark that was shining vaguely. The light seemed to be alive as it floated above the Dharma treasure, and from it, Yi Qingtang could feel a holy aura. This is a mystic artifact? Yi Qingtang was astonished. From her previous life, she knew that any artifact left behind by God would contain God's breath, and these artifacts were known as mystic artifacts. However, mystic artifacts were so rare in this world. Yi Qingtang never imagined that she could find a mystic artifact here. However, before Yi Qingtang could figure out where the mystic artifact was from, she suddenly realized that everyone who was looking for treasures seemed to notice something, and all looked towards the direction she was at. This is bad. Yi Qingtang was nervous. The stink must have attracted everyone's attention, and the aura on the 3 Dharma treasures also revealed their presence. What interesting treasure did you find? A young voice came from Yi Qingtang's back. Yi Qingtang lifted up the box that contained the 3 Dharma treasures almost instinctively. She placed the mystic artifact with God's mark into her space ring secretly. Chapter 1504 Protector 1 When Yi Qingtang turned around, she realized that the Celestial Fairy, who had been on the other side of the Great Hall, had appeared behind her at some point. A bright, innocent smile appeared on the Celestial Fairy's exquisite little face. Her smiling eyes looked straight at Yi Qingtang. Besides the Celestial Fairy, the Jiang family and the ancient Yu clan also sensed the powerful aura and flew over. When Yi Qingtang looked at the group of powerful cultivators before her, the corner of her mouth twitched beneath her veil. Everyone immediately saw the two ancient and mysterious Dharma artifacts in Yi Qingtang's hands. Everyone present was a renowned, powerful cultivator, and their perception of this type of aura was extremely developed. Thus, they were naturally aware that these two Dharma artifacts were extraordinary. At that moment, Jiang Shangyu and the others from the Jiang family were delighted. Ignoring the question of whether they still intended to kill Yi Qingtang, this item was discovered by a member of their family. It would definitely be beneficial to them. But at that moment, Jiang Shangyu had yet to speak. He was no fool. Right now, many had noticed Yi Qingtang's two Dharma treasures. If he stood forth and proclaimed that Yi Qingtang was a member of their Jiang family, it might attract the attention of many with ill intentions. Yi Qingtang knew full well that an innocent person in possession of treasure would be considered guilty. She secretly glanced at the silent group from the Jiang family, and her mouth curled in a cold smile. "Little girl, hand those two things over to me if you don't want to die," said the old man who was together with the green-robed girl. He had immediately determined that these two Dharma treasures were extraordinary. "Hand them to you? What a joke! How can these things be handed to you?" An elder from the ancient Yu clan laughed coldly. He immediately planned to seize the two Dharma treasures. With that, he gave Yi Qingtang a chilly look and said, "Our ancient Yu clan will take those two Dharma treasures. You better hand them to me or else." Everyone present could tell that the grades of these two Dharma treasures definitely exceeded those of other plunder. Even the moon goddess ring could not compare to them. In a moment, everyone had decided to seize the two Dharma treasures. However, there were too many people trying to get hold of it, and they kept each other in check. As a result, no one was in a hurry to act. Yi Qingtang felt gloomy as she looked at the scene before her. She could forget about these two treasures. Everyone present had seen her obtain it, and they would not let her off easily. They would certainly kill her to seize these two items. Yi Qingtang's eyes flickered as she considered the situation. Then, she took the two treasures and walked straight over to the celestial fairy. As everyone looked on in shock, she reached out and offered the two Dharma treasures to the celestial fairy. The celestial fairy could naturally sense the power of these two Dharma treasures. She had intended to kill this girl while everyone else was fighting and obtain the two Dharma treasures. But she did not expect this girl to be so aware of her situation and actively give them to her. "Damn girl, what are you doing?" The old man's face grew grim when he saw what Yi Qingtang was doing. A powerful force suddenly built up in his hand. The seemingly petite and harmless celestial fairy suddenly glared at the old man. Her body was instantly shrouded in a purple glow. The next instant, a suffocating amount of force and pressure suddenly surrounded the old man. Chapter 1505 Protector 2. Can't you see, she's talking to me? A sinister look suddenly appeared on the celestial fairy's pale little face. The old man sensed the aura of oppression from the celestial fairy, and his heart sank. He was also from the second domain. How could he be ignorant of the celestial fairy's power? He might not fear the celestial fairy in a one-on-one fight, but the old man looked at the forces from the purple palace that were behind the celestial fairy. He looked grim, and the force in his hand dissipated. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Qingtang. "Damn girl, if you dare to hand those things to someone else, I will reduce you to ashes." The celestial fairy laughed softly. It was a childish laugh, but it was filled with bone-chilling, murderous intent. "I would like to see as well. Who dares to touch something offered to the purple palace?" The old man's expression turned ugly. The other groups did not look pleased either. Few of the people present had abilities that matched the celestial fairies. Yi Qingtang was naturally well aware of the celestial fairy's abilities, otherwise, she would not have handed the two Dharma treasures to her. She certainly could not hold on to these two Dharma treasures. No matter which side she gave it to, she would offend the rest. She might as well choose the strongest side and hope that that would keep her safe. Anyway, she had already secretly hidden the best artifact. She might as well offer up the remaining two since they were so difficult to handle. The celestial fairy looked coldly at everyone. The threat in her eyes was clear. The group from the Jiang family looked displeased when they saw that Yi Qingtang had actually handed the 2 Dharma treasures to the Celestial Fairy. I have long heard of the Celestial Fairy's fame. I believe that only the fairy can use these 2 Dharma treasures. Yi Qingtang smiled at the Celestial Fairy and smoothly flattered her. A brilliant smile appeared on the Celestial Fairy's young face, like a child delighted with a new toy. But the oppressive force she had released just now prevented anyone present from viewing her as a child. Little girl, you're so good at flattery. Since you're so obedient, I will treat you well. The Celestial Fairy took the 2 Dharma treasures and looked around with an intimidating expression. She slowly spoke. If anyone dares to attack you within this palace, it will be tantamount to attacking my purple palace. These words were a warning for everyone. As long as Yi Qingtang remained in this palace, the Celestial Fairy would protect her. However, this protection was limited. Once Yi Qingtang left the palace, the Celestial Fairy would have nothing to do with her. When Yi Qingtang heard the Celestial Fairy's words, she inwardly called her a sly old fox. Everyone understood the Celestial Fairy's meaning. Even though some were not satisfied, they were unwilling to make trouble with the Purple Palace. After all, there were still plenty of Dharma treasures in this palace. If they fought the Purple Palace at this point, they might suffer losses instead. With that, everyone stopped quibbling. However, the old man swept Yi Qingtang a vicious look before he left. Even the group from the Jiang family shot Yi Qingtang disgusted looks. Yi Qingtang continued to smile, but she writhed inwardly. Although she had obtained a mystical artifact, she had certainly offended many people. Chapter 1506 Protector 3 Yi Qingtang secretly heaved a sigh of relief as she saw the crowd slowly disperse. At that moment, Jiang Sun returned to her side, looking worried. Tang, what happened just now? How did you find something so deadly? Jiang Sun's expression was filled with distress. Of course, it was good to have found a Dharma treasure in the main hall, but Yi Qingtang was just too weak. Even if she found some treasure, she would be unable to retain it for her own use, and it would bring disaster on her instead. Although Yi Qingtang had obtained the Celestial Fairy's protection just now, she had offended all the other groups. The Celestial Fairy could not possibly protect her all the time. When they had obtained enough treasures, the people from the Purple Palace would leave. Then, even if Yi Qingtang remained hidden in the palace, the Celestial Fairy would certainly not bother with her. Yi Qingtang laughed wryly. How could she have known that the box would contain something so conspicuous? Jiang Sun frowned slightly, then pulled Yi Qingtang into a corner. Tang, you cannot remain in this palace. They haven't acted yet. I will seize the opportunity to get out of here. Once the people from the Purple Palace left, those who hated Yi Qingtang would probably attack her. Jiang Shangyu and the others wanted Yi Qingtang dead as soon as possible, so they certainly would not protect her either. Why not sneak away when everyone was busy looking for treasure? Jiang Sun's injuries had improved greatly after she rested. She could not bear to leave Yi Qingtang alone in the land of infinite, so she thought of a way to get Yi Qingtang out of there. Yi Qingtang naturally grasped the merits of her plan. With that, Jiang Sun looked around. When she saw that no one was paying attention to them, she and Yi Qingtang fled from the palace through the main door. But their movements were detected by Yi Yu, who had been watching Yi Qingtang's every move from his secret spot. Yi Yu immediately sought out Jiang Qin and Jiang Shangyu, and told them about Yi Qingtang's escape. That Yi Qingtang is truly a traitorous creature. She is a member of the Jiang family, but when she obtained such a wonderful Dharma treasure, she did not hand it over to fifth granduncle. She has no thought for the prestige of the Jiang family. Jiang Qin laughed coldly and glanced at Jiang Shangyu. Jiang Shangyu looked very displeased. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at Jiang Qin and Jiang Shun, who were standing next to him. He secretly nodded to them. Jiang Qin and Jiang Shun instantly grasped Jiang Shangyu's meaning. They summoned some Jiang family members and left the palace in pursuit. Not long after Jiang Sun left the palace with Yi Qingtang in tow, she sensed someone approaching from behind. Jiang Sun looked back to see Jiang Qin, Jiang Shun, and the others rapidly nearing. Jiang Sun frowned, but when she realized that they were Jiang family members, she slowed down a little. "Aunt, fifth grand uncle wants you to return immediately. The various forces are still fighting for the Dharma treasures. If you leave now, the Jiang family will find treasure at a slower rate than the others." Jiang Qin looked at Jiang Sun accusingly. "There are so many of you, aren't there enough?" Jiang Sun asked casually. "How can there be enough? Aunt, if you don't want to make fifth grand uncle unhappy, you had better hurry back with us now." Jiang Qin tried to persuade her. Jiang Sun frowned slightly. She felt that something was amiss, but before she could gather her wits, Jiang Shun, who had been silently standing there, seized the opportunity. He suddenly attacked Yi Qingtang, who was behind Jiang Sun. Jiang Sun snapped out of her trance and hurriedly blocked Jiang Shun's ambush. "Jiang Shun, what are you doing?" Chapter 1507 Hunt Down One. Jiang Shun laughed coldly. Yi Qingtang found a high-level Dharma artifact, but gave it to someone else. She should be punished in accordance with our family rules. "Aunt, if you don't stay out of this, don't blame me for being discourteous." Jiang Sun's expression immediately darkened. She wanted to rain curses down upon Jiang Shun's head. Under those circumstances, Yi Qingtang would certainly have died if she did not hand the items over. The Jiang family not only did not step forward to protect her, but were now attacking her instead. At that moment, Jiang Sun understood that Jiang Shun and the others were only looking for an excuse to kill Yi Qingtang. Jiang Sun suddenly spoke softly to Yi Qingtang, who was behind her. "Tang Tang, you'd better go." With that, Jiang Sun suddenly attacked Jiang Shun and the others while Yi Qingtang turned and fled without a word. When Jiang Shun and the others saw that Yi Qingtang was escaping, their expressions darkened. Jiang Shun met Jiang Sun's attack, then gestured to Jiang Qin and the rest. Jiang Qin and the others immediately gave chase. Jiang Qin led a group of Jiang family disciples and chased her. As the distance between Yi Qingtang and them narrowed, a cold, malicious gleam flashed across Jiang Qin's eyes. "Let's see where you can run to." Jiang Qin's lips arched in a chilly smile. She increased her speed and was just about to deal a blow to Yi Qingtang's back when a blinding beam of light shot forth from behind Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin was startled. She sensed an immense aura surround her, coming from the void. Before she had time to look up, the beam of light shot past her and flew directly towards the nearby Yi Qingtang. Boom! A huge explosion rang in their ears. Jiang Qin looked up at the void in shock, only to see the old man from the second domain. At some point he had caught up with them, and now he was looking down at Yi Qingtang from his vantage point. The latter had been struck by the beam of light. His eyes were filled with cold amusement. Jiang Qin was shocked, but delighted. Yi Qingtang must have annoyed this powerful cultivator from the second domain when she handed the 2 Dharma treasures to the celestial fairy. But this person was even more powerful than their 5th uncle. Yi Qingtang would probably be killed this time without them needing to lift a finger. As Jiang Qin waited to confirm Yi Qingtang's death, Yi Qingtang was surrounded by the beam of light that had struck her. Yi Qingtang was not spurting blood under the blinding light, as Jiang Qin had expected. Instead, her figure flickered and then disappeared. When the light disappeared, there was no trace of blood where Yi Qingtang had been standing. "What's going on?" Jiang Qin's eyes widened. She had personally witnessed Yi Qingtang being struck. Why did she disappear? An illusion. The old man from the second domain, who was in the void, saw the image vanish before his eyes. A malicious look slowly surfaced in his eyes. Then he vanished from the void with a flash. "Aunt Qin, what happened to Yi Qingtang?" A Jiang family disciple who had accompanied Jiang Qin could not understand what he was seeing. Jiang Qin was no fool. That Jiang Sun. I didn't expect her to be able to create an illusion of Yi Qingtang. I thought it was strange. Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed slightly. At that moment, she finally understood that the Yi Qingtang they had been pursuing was an illusion made out of spirit energy. Chapter 1508 Hunt Down 2. Jiang Sun was wondering where the little white tiger, which Yi Qingtang always carried in her arms, had gone to. With Yi Qingtang's ability, she couldn't possibly have gotten far. Spread out and search for her. I must have her head today, Jiang Qin said with a cold laugh. But Aunt Qin, hasn't the powerful cultivator from the second domain already gone to look for Yi Qingtang? Why don't we quietly await developments? Someone suggested. But Jiang Qin glared coldly at him. Didn't you understand what I said? I want Yi Qingtang dead. The land of infinite demons is so large. If the powerful cultivator from the second domain cannot find her, won't she be able to escape? Everyone finally nodded in comprehension. They divided into groups and continued to search. While everyone was searching for Yi Qingtang had already flown several miles away. Fuck, those Jiang family members were really up to no good. The little white tiger in Yi Qingtang's arms cursed softly. Yi Qingtang and Jiang Sun had just left the main hall when the little white tiger sensed many auras pursuing them, and so it warned Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang knew from Jiang Lang and his wife that Jiang Sun could create illusions. After a hurried discussion with Jiang Sun, she allowed Jiang Sun to use spirit energy to create an illusion that looked like her, to follow Jiang Sun. Then, even if the Jiang family caught them, they would not dare to do anything to Jiang Sun. She herself could seize the opportunity to sneak away. This time, they brought me to the land of infinite demons in order to get rid of me. Yi Qingtang laughed softly. She was fully prepared for Jiang Qin and the others. Perhaps she could continue to depend on Jiang Sun, but now, Jiang Sun was injured, and Jiang Shangyu had no intention of protecting Jiang Sun. Yi Qingtang was afraid that Jiang Shun and the others would kill Jiang Sun if they were forced to do so. Thus, Yi Qingtang had chosen to do things this way, firstly as a delaying tactic, and secondly to avoid involving Jiang Sun. The land of infinite demons was incredibly vast, and it would be no easy matter for someone to catch her. Although Yi Qingtang was prepared, she did not let her guard down. She flew swiftly with the little white tiger, hoping to get as far away from danger as possible. But before she had gotten far, she sensed a strong oppressive force floating about her head. Yi Qingtang hurriedly looked up at the void and saw that the old man from the second domain, who had accompanied the green-robed girl, flying a short distance behind her. What the hell? Yi Qingtang had not expected the old man from the second domain to chase after her. He must have greatly resented not being able to obtain the 2 Dharma treasures. Yi Qingtang's earlier plan was to distract the group from the Jiang family. She did not expect that this even more powerful fellow would be so desperate to want her life. Her expression darkened, and she quickly scanned the mountains and the forest. Boom! A blinding beam of light suddenly fell from the sky and charged towards Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang flew aside, narrowly avoiding this deadly strike. I would like to see how the Purple Palace can protect you now that you have left the palace. The old man looked disdainfully at Yi Qingtang from his vantage point. How dare an insect from the 8th heaven of arcane supremacy embarrass him? Today he would make her long for death. Cold sweat popped up on Yi Qingtang's forehead. From the side of her eyes, she secretly scanned her surroundings for something. Chapter 1509 Hunt Down 3. What's the matter? You couldn't beat the celestial fairy to obtain the 2 Dharma treasures, so now you're taking it out on me? Yi Qingtang put on a mocking look while secretly looking for an escape route. The old man's expression stiffened. Little brat, you can spout whatever nonsense you want. Well, see what else you can say later when I rip out your tongue, the old man said with a cold smile. Then he suddenly rushed downwards. Yi Qingtang looked at the approaching old man, and her eyes narrowed. She clutched the little white tiger tightly, then jumped down a nearby slope. The slope was not steep. When Yi Qingtang jumped, a lot of rubble came loose and rolled down. Below the slope was a wide, low-lying valley, shrouded by layers of clouds. Yi Qingtang clutched the little white tiger tightly in her arms. As they fell swiftly, many stones hit its furry head. Although it was not that painful, the little white tiger was unable to open its eyes under the bombardment. Fuck, are you jumping to your death here? The little white tiger's acute senses had already perceived that the valley beneath the clouds was filled with thick aura. If we don't jump, we really will die. Yi Qingtang was unusually calm. The old man was at least in the realm of a holy venerate. With her present powers, there was no way she could withstand him. The little white tiger immediately understood what Yi Qingtang meant, but what was below was even more difficult to deal with. A billowing demonic aura mixed with the strong scent of blood obscured all other auras in the valley. At that moment, the old man's only desire was to twist Yi Qingtang's head off, so he flew over in pursuit. Yi Qingtang, who continued to fall, did not know how far she had fallen, but the next second, she crashed into something warm and soft. This feeling was extremely odd. Yi Qingtang felt something sticky under her hand, and there was something soft under her feet that prevented her from standing steadily. A strong scent of blood choked her nostrils, as if forcing all the air out of her lungs. The old man also flew downward. When he landed, his nostrils were similarly filled by the strong scent of blood. There seemed to be something strange amidst the clouds. He frowned slightly. Then he caught sight of where Yi Qingtang had landed. Suspended in midair, he gathered a powerful beam of light in his hand and released it towards the spot Yi Qingtang had landed. Boom! A resounding crash immediately filtered down from the clouds. The old man secretly smirked coldly. The surrounding scent of blood became a little stronger. The girl was certainly dead. The old man was certain that he had dealt Yi Qingtang a fatal blow. However, before he could fly away from this strange valley, a huge fin from within the valley suddenly broke through the clouds and flew towards the old man, who was about to leave. The fin was so large that it spanned 100 square meters. The old man was suddenly smashed into the mountainside by the huge fish. If not for his great powers, all the bones in his body would have been crushed by the blow. Even so, the force of the blow forced him to sink into the mountainside. A dreamy, ethereal voice suddenly rang out from within the valley. Amidst the scent of blood, the huge, translucent fin had sliced through the clouds. An extremely thick demonic aura suddenly engulfed the entire valley. As the strange voice rang out, the originally quiet valley was suddenly thrown into turmoil. Big fellow One Yi Qingtang was crouching on the soft, sticky heap when the ground beneath her feet suddenly trembled. She hurriedly grabbed the little white tiger and lied down flat against the ground. The next moment, they saw strange points of light appear above their heads. Yi Qingtang subconsciously raised her head to look and saw hundreds of eyes of different sizes 100 meters above her head, opening one by one. They heard the strange gasping noise again, accompanied by a typhoon that blew towards them. Yi Qingtang had no choice but to once again lie down against the ground beneath her. As the clouds dissipated, Yi Qingtang could finally clearly see the appearance of the ground she was crouching on. It was not spacious earth, but rather, the body of the big demon soaking in copious amounts of blood. The big demon lying on the ground was the one from the frosty snow mountains that everyone was searching for just now. At that moment, half of the big demon's body had been devoured. Shreds of bloodied flesh clung to half of the white bones. The huge skeleton stood on one side of the valley, and Yi Qingtang had been crouching on the big demon's remaining flesh. Yi Qingtang's robes were now soaked by the big demon's blood, but she continued to crouch motionlessly on the pile of bones. The big demon who had dragged the body of the frosty snow mountains demon away was also right before Yi Qingtang's eyes. For the first time, Yi Qingtang saw clearly what a big demon looked like. This big demon was somewhat like a whale, and its head had hundreds of eyes of different sizes. The huge mouth was as wide as the valley. Its entire body was covered with deep blue scales, and it was flanked by many translucent fins. One of the fins had smacked straight into the old man from the second domain. The big demon's huge mouth slowly cracked open, and it puffed out a turbid breath. The smell of decay mingled with the scent of blood. This casual breath spread out like a typhoon. If Yi Qingtang had not been pressing tightly to the ground, she would have been sent flying. Yi Qingtang had seen the big demon fly through the layers of clouds and had noted the direction in which it left. When the powerful cultivator from the second domain chased after her, she had noticed that the sides of that slope showed signs of being flattened. She had also noticed the blood and flesh buried between the rubble. Yi Qingtang guessed that the big demon might be in this huge valley. She would certainly die if she did not jump. She would probably die if she jumped. So she jumped. The big demon was so utterly powerful that humans like them were no more than insects to it. However, the powerful cultivator from the second domain had been intent on killing her, so he had attacked. But the Sith unwittingly provoked the big demon. The old man, who had been smacked into the mountainside by the translucent fin, finally realized there was something deadly hidden in this valley at that moment. He finally understood why Yi Qingtang had suddenly jumped down here. However, it was too late. The big demon who was eating had been provoked. It let out an unhappy cry, and the fin pinned the old man down. Under the crushing and unrelenting pressure, the surrounding mountains also gave way. Yi Qingtang secretly observed the big demon's reaction and noticed that the big demon's attention was now focused on the old man who had provoked it. She led the little white tiger and slowly used the slippery blood on the body to slide down a little at a time, landing in the dead big demon's abdomen. Chapter 15:11 Big Fellow 2. At that moment, the old man, who was being unrelentingly crushed by the big demon, was still using the qi in his upper body to protect himself. However, he had already spat out a mouthful of blood. He fervently wished he could tear Yi Qingtang into pieces. But at that moment, it was nearly impossible to extricate himself from the grasp of the unhappy big demon. The big demon was unimaginably large. The hollowed-out abdomen was as large as a palace. Blood continued to drip from the flesh above, and the earth beneath Yi Qingtang's feet was unusually sticky from being soaked in fresh blood. Yi Qingtang seized the opportunity to escape from the big demon's abdomen with the little white tiger. As for that old man, he was on his own. Yi Qingtang did not care whether the old man lived or died. She hoped the big demon would lose its temper and tear him into pieces. Yi Qingtang walked for a long time through the big demon's abdominal cavity. The smell was nauseating, but Yi Qingtang suddenly thought of something. She took out the dagger she carried on her person and scraped large quantities of the big demon's flesh from the inner walls. Then she stored them in her space ring. One must know that the big demon's flesh and blood were extremely valuable. Every small amount was a treasure greatly desired by many martial arts cultivators. When this big demon's body was taken away, everyone had given up hope. Yi Qingtang had not thought about it, but she had unexpectedly managed to obtain some flesh while the big demon was dealing with the old man. But the smell in the big demon's body was truly intolerable, especially for the little white tiger, who had an extremely sharp sense of smell. The stench almost caused it to faint. When Yi Qingtang saw that the little white tiger could not stand it any longer, she simply pinched its nose shut so that it would be easier for the little white tiger to bear. But the moment it opened its mouth to breathe, a drop of the big demon's blood dripped into the little white tiger's mouth. This really caused the little white tiger to shudder. Before Yi Qingtang could react, the little white tiger directly bit off a large piece of big demon's flesh from the inner walls and swallowed it. The big demon's flesh was beneficial to fiend celestial beasts, just as it was to martial arts cultivators. The little white tiger's skills had not advanced for a long time. The power in the big demon's flesh was just what it needed. So the girl and the beast busied themselves in the big demon's abdomen. Yi Qingtang scraped off large quantities of flesh, and the little white tiger seized the opportunity to munch on it. Before long, they heard a dull noise outside, and the big demon's body began to sway. "Let's go!" Yi Qingtang grabbed hold of the little white tiger, who had been eating happily, and flew towards the light. No matter how valuable the big demon's body was, it was not worth dying for. The big demon's attention was now on the old man. But once he was dead, the big demon would soon discover the two of them, which it had overlooked, partaking of its victory spoils. They would be doomed. Yi Qingtang did not know whether the old man was alive, so she swiftly ran out of the big demon's body with the little white tiger in tow. From afar, she could see a patch of dust rising behind her, but could not clearly see what was going on. Yi Qingtang did not dare to remain any longer. She clutched the little white tiger tightly and swiftly clambered up the side of the valley. As they exited the valley, its interior was rocked by a huge tremor. Yi Qingtang saw the whale-like large demon flying through the clouds, gripping the other big demon's body in its mouth. Large amounts of blood fell, and it looked as though it would fill up the valley. Chapter 15:12 Big Fellow 3 Yi Qingtang sighed in relief after the big demon flew into the clouds. Yi Qingtang, you're here? Yi Qingtang suddenly heard someone shout her name. Jiang Qin and the rest were looking for Yi Qingtang for a while. They came over when they heard the noise and were shocked by the big demon, but their eyes brightened when they saw Yi Qingtang, who was covered with blood. It was such a coincidence. Yi Qingtang did not expect that she would encounter any danger when she just managed to escape from the previous one. Her eyes darkened when she saw Jiang Qin and the few disciples of the Jiang family behind her. Yi Qingtang, you have lived long enough. Today will be the day of your death. Jiang Qin sneered. Don't bother looking for Jiang Sun anymore. He's dragged by my elder brother now. Prepare for your death now. You're so kind to Yi Yu. Yi Qingtang chuckled. She had nothing to do with Jiang Qin, but everything was due to Yi Yu. You're not even comparable to Yu heir. If you behaved yourself, I could still spare your life. But you didn't know your place here and kept disturbing Yu heir's life. I will not allow that to happen anymore. Jiang Qin narrowed her eyes and took a glimpse at the Jiang family disciples behind her. Only when you're dead will Yu heir be relieved. The moment Jiang Qin finished her words, the few disciples dashed towards Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang understood that she could not fight against them. She carried the little white tiger and flew away immediately. It's not going to be easy for you to escape today. Go after her. I want her dead today. Jiang Qin said coldly. A few shadows dashed into midair. Yi Qingtang's face was still covered by sticky blood, but now she could not be bothered by that anymore. She was now certain that Jiang Qin wanted her dead. If it was a one-to-one fight, Yi Qingtang might still have a chance to beat the disciples. However, her opponents outnumbered her, and they obviously did not want her to be alive today. Yi Qingtang could only look ahead and try to speed up as much as she could. Suddenly, a familiar voice came out from Yi Qingtang's pocket. Head towards the southeast. Ling Yan's voice came from the voice transmission stone in her pocket. Yi Qingtang was stunned for a second. She took a glance at the people chasing behind her and changed her direction immediately without question. She flew towards the direction Ling Yan specified. After a short while, Yi Qingtang saw an area among the forests in the land of infinite demons that was surrounded by heavy fog. Under the fog that even extended to the sky, there seemed to be no end. She could sense a strange aura from inside. That's the forbidden area of the land of infinite demons? Yi Qingtang looked towards the foggy area. She could feel the demonic air coming out from the fog even though she was not close to the place. You're right. As long as you enter that place, your dilemma can be solved. Ling Yan's voice was calm. It was as if he knew the entire situation and could see Yi Qingtang right in front of him. Yi Qingtang was silent. She had never been to the land of infinite demons in her previous life, not mentioning the forbidden area. However, Yi Qingtang took a deep breath secretly as the disciples got closer. She hugged the little white tiger and dashed into the fog-covered area. Chapter 15:13 The Forbidden Place of Infinite Demons. One people of the Jiang family were stunned when they saw Yi Qingtang enter the fog-covered area. They did not follow her and stopped right outside. Is this the forbidden land? One of the men glanced at the heavy fog in front of him. The fog seemed to separate the inner area from the outer perimeter, forming a forbidden zone. The forbidden land of the land of infinite demons was the place that all forces tried to avoid when they came to the land of infinite demons. No one knew what was in the forbidden land, but everyone was clear that no one had made it out alive from it before. Many powerful figures had come over after hearing about the forbidden land. Even the big demons and demon kings wanted to enter this place to discover its secrets. However, those figures were not seen again after they entered the forbidden land. There was a slight chance of survival in the land of infinite demons. There was absolutely no chance of survival in the forbidden land. The disciples of the Jiang family felt now. They did not expect that Yi Qingtang would dare to enter the Forbidden Land. What should we do now? They exchanged glances with each other. It's been a few thousand years since someone entered the Forbidden Land. A young man frowned and said, they heard about how dangerous it was in the forbidden area, but those legends were from a few thousand or even 10,000 years ago. According to the legends, the Forbidden Land was extremely dangerous, but it contained even more treasures. If they could kill Yi Qingtang inside and bring back treasures, they would definitely be rewarded. A few of the disciples had visited the land of infinite demons a few times before and were confident with their abilities. If they could figure out the secret of the forbidden place, they might even have the chance to enter the elder cabinet of the Jiang family. After some hesitation, an ambitious young man entered the fog. Sometimes, ambition and greed would bury one's fear. The rest of the disciples had the same thought. They would not be able to explain themselves if they did not kill Yi Qingtang. All of them entered the fog immediately. Jiang Qin arrived at the place a little later and witnessed those disciples entering the fog. She froze on the spot and wanted to stop them. But it was too late. Only vague outlines could be seen in the heavy, humid fog. Yi Qingtang felt strange after she dashed into the fog with the little white tiger. The humidity in the fog was in contact with the big demon's blood on her body, causing the blood that was almost dry to become thick and sticky again. She could also feel the coldness along with the humidity, and her teeth began trembling under the cold. Although she had to escape, Yi Qingtang slowed down under the thick fog as she could not see anything. Ling Yan. Yi Qingtang took out the voice transmission stone instinctively and wanted to get some clues from Ling Yan. However, Yi Qingtang realized that the spirit energy in the voice transmission stone dispersed when she held the stone in her hand. It was just a cold and normal stone now. What she said just now was not transmitted, and there was no response from Ling Yan. Chapter 1514 The Forbidden Place of Infinite Demons 2. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. She could sense something strange in the fog. The gray fog seemed to be mixed with many white and black clouds that appeared like cotton. However, there was no tangible feeling on touch. It was more like condensed smoke. There are some peculiar things in the fog. I'm afraid that your voice transmission stone cannot be used here. The little white tiger lied in Yi Qingtang's arms and moved its whiskers. Its nose was uncomfortable from the cold air in the fog. Yi Qingtang was confused, but Ling Yan must have his reasons when he told her to enter the place. While Yi Qingtang was pondering, she heard some voices and footsteps behind her. They actually followed me here? Yi Qingtang was surprised. Before they came to the land of infinite demons, Jiang Shangyu reminded them many times that no one could enter the Forbidden Land. She had no choice, but those people, are they seeking death here? They really want to have themselves killed. Yi Qingtang did not want to stay at where she was. She increased her speed as she carried the little white tiger. Yi Qingtang could feel something crawling below her feet, and the crawling sound constantly reached her ears. She looked downwards instinctively and saw countless hair-like black strings intertwined together. It looked like normal, dark ground at first glance, but at a closer look, the black strings were constantly crawling. The black strings crawled between each other but avoided the area where Yi Qingtang was standing at. The strings stopped when she stepped down, but once she lifted her feet, the strings would start moving again. Yi Qingtang did not know what the strings were. She instinctively wanted to get away from them and decided to jump into midair. However, she felt something cold brushing across her face when she was just 1 meter above the ground. She looked up immediately. Millions of black strings were hanging down on top of her. They intertwined with each other and brushed across Yi Qingtang's face like human hair. The strings crawled slightly as they were in contact with her face. Yi Qingtang's whole body was filled with goosebumps. She instantly chose to remain on the ground as she could not see where the strings came from in the heavy fog. The moment she landed on the ground, she heard some horrifying screams coming from a few meters away. Yi Qingtang recognized this voice. It belonged to one of the disciples of the Jiang family who followed Jiang Qin previously. Before Yi Qingtang could figure out what was going on, a few figures rushed forward behind her miserably. Yi Qingtang could see the situation clearly this time. The disciples of the Jiang family who chased her in order to kill her now ran forward with their eyes wide open. It was as if they had encountered ghosts, as their faces were all pale. As they ran, the black strings on the ground appeared to be alive and crawled onto their legs. They tried to run to get rid of the strings, but there were more strings crawling onto their bodies. Yi Qingtang took a glimpse behind her and saw a disciple of the Jiang family near the entrance, shouting desperately and trying to crawl forward on the ground. Chapter 15:15 The Forbidden Place of Infinite Demons 3 That handsome face was now covered by countless black strings, which pierced through his skin from his temples and crawled under his skin to fill the entire face. Blood spurted out from his face. Besides his face, all of his exposed skin was pierced through by the black strings. His entire body seemed distorted. Large amounts of blood spurted out from the wounds, yet the black strings seemed to be excited by the blood and rushed into his body crazily. Swoosh! An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. Yi Qingtang witnessed the man being skinned by the black strings. He stretched his hand out for help, but to no avail. A skinless, bloody man was dragged out onto the ground almost instantly and was totally buried by the black strings. A full piece of human skin was left behind together with the groans that were getting softer and softer. After seeing a man being skinned alive, Yi Qingtang felt that it was colder in the surroundings. Before Yi Qingtang could recover her senses, the black strings suddenly rushed towards the skin and filled up the entire skin. Yi Qingtang decided not to stay here anymore. Though she did not know why the black strings did not attack her at the moment, it was better to leave this place now. Yi Qingtang ran forward with the little white tiger in her arms. She constantly paid attention to the black strings under her feet to check whether they were going to attack her. However, the black strings did not seem to be interested in her and did not move much. Yi Qingtang could see some light in front of her, and she sped up and dashed out of the fog. The scene she saw right after shocked her deeply. The disciples who managed to come out of the fog now lied on the ground. There were 3 bear-like monsters with distorted faces, and they bent their heads and dragged the internal organs out from the abdomens of those disciples. The most terrifying fact was that those disciples were not dead yet. Their limbs were fractured, and bones were nailed onto the ground to restrict their movements. They opened their eyes wide and witnessed their own organs being dragged out and eaten by the 3 monsters. The pain and fear really drove them crazy. "Bastard, let go," one of the disciples cursed in pain. But before he could finish his words, his jaw was crushed by one of the monsters. Blood flowed out, but he was still alive and could only bear with the torture that was worse than death. One of the disciples from the Jiang family seemed to escape from the torture by sheer luck. He shivered and fell to the ground, terrified by the hell-like scene in front of him. Their ambition and greed were totally crushed by the constant torture now. They should have known this. The horror of the Forbidden Land did not just exist in the legends, yet they still chose to ignore it. It was impossible for them to escape anymore. The man who was not noticed by the 3 monsters by luck could not bear with what he saw anymore. He escaped into the fog in fear, trying to look for a way out. Chapter 15:16 Absolute Death 1 However, the moment he stepped into the fog, the white and black clouds of cotton suddenly rushed into his body from his mouth, nose, and ears. His body was filled out, and then he exploded in front of Yi Qingtang. His flesh and organs splashed onto the ground. Yi Qingtang, who wanted to retreat from the same path, now totally gave up on that thought. She felt that the fog was peculiar, yet now it seemed normal when they first entered, but it would kill them if they tried to re-enter from the inside of the Forbidden Land. Yi Qingtang was not sure whether her guess was correct, but she did not have a life to spare to confirm her thoughts. The sky above her head was covered by the fog. The voice transmission stone was not working, and there were 3 monsters consuming human organs. Yi Qingtang really felt that she was on the path to death. Those disciples of the Jiang family finished their last breath and lied flat on the ground. Death just helped them to break free from the torture. However, the moment they died, The three monsters who were eating the organs suddenly seemed to lose interest in the dead food. They immediately threw away the unfinished organs in their hands and looked for new prey around. They landed their sight on the only two alive creatures there: Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger. Yi Qingtang stared at the malicious monsters. Though she had not fought with them yet, she could feel that these monsters' abilities were above the holy venerate stage. Their abilities were definitely not questionable since they could survive in such a horrifying forbidden place. Fighting against three holy venerate stage monsters? Yi Qingtang was definitely not capable of that. When Yi Qingtang thought she and the little white tiger might die here today, the three monsters seemed to be able to tell what she was thinking and walked slowly towards her. Yi Qingtang felt a cold sweat on her forehead. She secretly stimulated all energy in her body to find a chance of survival. A stream of hot air came out from the monsters' noses. Yi Qingtang was about to use all her strength to fight them as they walked over. However, the three monsters surrounded her up and did not have any intention to attack her. They just sniffed around her body. It seemed like they were trying to probe and sense. Did they treat us as kin because of the blood of the big demon on our body? The little white tiger murmured after seeing that the three malicious monsters did not attack them immediately. Yi Qingtang did not dare to let her guard down, but she had the same thought. Previously, she felt strange when the black strings did not attack her. Now, the three monsters also did not seem to want to attack her. Yi Qingtang looked at the big demon's blood on her and the little white tiger's body. The little white tiger's assumption might be true. The big demon and the monsters should be of the same clan. They must be familiar with the big demon's smell and have treated her as the same creature. Yi Qingtang probed and took a step forward with the assumption in mind. The three monsters did not intend to attack or stop her. They just followed her by her feet and continued to sniff. Yi Qingtang sighed in relief secretly and tried to walk forward. The three monsters just followed behind her slowly. They walked with four legs and lifted up their heads to sniff. Chapter 15-17 Absolute Death 2. After walking for about 10 meters, Yi Qingtang suddenly stopped and turned back. The three monsters also stopped. They lifted up their heads and opened their round eyes to stare at her in a silly way. Yi Qingtang suddenly felt that they really treated her as the same kind of creature. The three monsters shook their heads to look at Yi Qingtang. They used their noses to sniff her. The smell of blood was strong and familiar, but beneath the blood, they smelled something that was even more familiar. The smell belonged to the same type of creature as them. Oink! The largest monster used its giant nose to push Yi Qingtang's back as she did not walk forward anymore. Though it did not use much strength, the force from a 10-meter-tall monster almost pushed Yi Qingtang to the ground. The monster was asking her to walk forward. Yi Qingtang's lips twitched slightly. She had complicated emotions as she stared at the monsters who stood in a line behind her. Yi Qingtang was content with her situation when she saw the disciples of the Jiang family with their stomachs ripped open. Yi Qingtang could not help but choose to carry on walking. She felt lucky that her body was stained with the big demon's blood and that she did not have time to wash it away. Otherwise, she would end up in the same situation as the disciples of the Jiang family. After walking forward for a while, Yi Qingtang saw many bones around her. These people were dead for more than 1,000 years. She could see mountain ridges in front of her, but they looked dim now. Though Yi Qingtang did not see other living creatures, she could sense many pairs of eyes staring at her in the dark. Is it because of the three monsters? That's why those creatures in the dark didn't come out? Yi Qingtang was confused as she glanced at the three monsters following behind her. The little white tiger in her arms also glanced around. It suddenly seemed to recall something and said, "These three are the demonic bears." Demonic bear? Yi Qingtang was slightly shocked when she heard the name. The demonic bear was a type of demon. Yi Qingtang heard about them in her previous life that they were malicious and liked to consume all types of creatures. However, they only ate their prey when they were still alive. Once the prey died, the demonic bears would abandon them. According to the legends, the demonic bear was the most loyal servant of the demons. They had huge strength and thick skin, and they would become big demons after living for 100,000 years. They were extremely ferocious but had low intelligence. They were always loyal servants. Yi Qingtang looked at the 3 demonic bears behind her. Based on their sizes, they were still young, maybe only about 10,000 years old. The youngest might only be a few thousand years old. The demonic bear would undergo a huge change when it reached 30,000 years. Its body would increase by 10 times in size. This change would happen again at 50, 80, and 100,000 years. Eventually, it would become a big demon that could smash half of a mainland with one paw. Yi Qingtang looked at the 3 silly and honest demonic bears. There were some differences between them and the drawings, but she could not tell exactly. Yi Qingtang was still at the border of the Forbidden Land. It was definitely not the most dangerous place, but the bones that were scattered on the ground revealed how many people had died here. The strange black strings in the fog terrified Yi Qingtang. She could not even tell what the origin of the black strings was. She could only remember the human skin that was filled up by the black strings. Chapter 15:18 Absolute Death 3 Yi Qingtang walked forward with caution. She saw a broken ridge under a giant waterfall. Water flowed across the broken ridge. The area had been weathered by wind and snow over the years, revealing now only a tattered image of its former glory. Yi Qingtang walked over slightly and saw some strange characters on a tablet. She had never seen those characters before. While Yi Qingtang wanted to spend some time to figure out the words, she suddenly heard some noises. "Fuck off. We wouldn't be stuck here if not because of you." A roar suddenly rang. The tone was really fierce, but the voice sounded so pure and innocent that it totally changed the intention of the sentence. "There are other people here?" Yi Qingtang's heart rate increased. She immediately led the little white tiger and the 3 demonic bears towards where the voice came from. It seemed that the voice came behind the waterfall. Yi Qingtang climbed across the mess and dashed into the waterfall. She was really curious about the origin of the voice. She was still being cautious and entered from the side. She then hid in the dark. Yi Qingtang stood in the dark and looked towards the huge cave behind the waterfall with the light reflected from the water. She was shocked by what she saw. In the dim cave, there was a group of children who all looked very young. The oldest might only be 5 or 6 years old. The rest looked like 2-year-old toddlers who just learned how to walk. There was even a baby who looked like he was just born. He lied on some broken clothes and waved his chubby limbs. What is this situation? Yi Qingtang was astonished by the group of children here. How can there be so many children in the forbidden land of the land of infinite demons? They can barely walk. The shrine was just there. Why did you have to destroy it? You're the reason why we are all trapped here. The pure but fierce voice came out again. Yi Qingtang looked over and saw a 3 or 4-year-old child staring at another child in rage. The angry child had pure red hair. He had a murderous look in his eyes, and he appeared to be ferocious and frowned. However, the expression on such a cute child really looked amusing. The child who was scolded took a glimpse at the red-haired child. He had long and black hair that reached his shoulder. He folded his chubby hands in front of his chest and used his big eyes to look at the red-haired child with contempt. He spoke in a mature tone with his innocent voice. "Did I ask you to come in? You!" The red-haired child was so angry that his face was swollen. He raised his fist and swung at the black-haired child. The rest of the children stared at the fight calmly. Their expressions looked way beyond their age. Chapter 15:19 Age Reversal Curse 1 Emperor Yen, just stop already. Haven't you fought enough? Seeing that the red-headed child was about to punch again, another child hurriedly ran over with his short legs and hugged the red-headed child from the back. "Get away from me, Fusu. I will beat you up if you utter one more piece of bullshit." The red-headed child had a vicious look on his face. "All you do is beat people up. Do you think that only you know how to do that? I was already annoyed with you back when we were in the second domain. Watch how I'm going to beat you up real hard today." A chubby child frowned deeply at the red-headed child's bluster and slammed his round fists onto his head. The red-headed child was dumbfounded for a moment. But in the next second, he lost all control and pushed away Fu Su, who was hugging his waist. Leaping with his short legs, the child lunged at the chubby child. The two children, both who could not even reach Yi Qingtang's thigh, were in a brawl in no time. Xiongyan, don't think I'm afraid of you just because you're big. Back in the second domain, you caused trouble for me time and again. I'm going to skin you today. Furious shouts escaped the mouths of those two fellows continuously as though a life-and-death battle was about to happen in the next second. Yet in reality, all Yi Qingtang saw was two kids hugging each other and rolling around until they were covered in mud. Watching the fight, Yi Qingtang was speechless. Apart from those two, there were still a few other kids in the cave who seemed to have some grudges with each other and were awfully busy with fighting each other from the start. The other children, on the other hand, were calm, and there were even two children who sat on the floor, drew a simple chessboard on the ground, and played chess using rocks. The indifferent child who was hollered at by the redhead was standing aside with an impatient look as he looked at the chaotic sight. The child known as Fu Su shook off the mud on his body. With a helpless expression, he walked to the child beside him. Jiang Yu, although Emperor Yan is not nice with his words, there is nothing wrong with what he said. You kneeled at that temple for thousands of years to pray to the gods to revive your dead wife. But why must you destroy that temple after kneeling for thousands of years? The child who was called Jiang Yu frowned slightly with a deep gaze. The gods deceived me. Why can't I destroy this temple that lies to everyone? Back then, I heard that as long as I kneeled in the temple and prayed earnestly, the gods would show kindness and revive my wife. However, I kneeled for thousands of years, and my wife's corpse has already turned into skeletons, yet there was still not a single sign of the gods' advent. Why can't I destroy such a ridiculous place? Yi Qingtang, who was hidden in the dark, heard every word that Jiang Yu said. And the words, Jiang Yu, left Yi Qingtang dumbstruck instantly. Jiang Yu? Isn't that the name of the Jiang family's domain monarch founder? Yi Qingtang was surprised. Subsequently, she thought of the names of the children that were called out earlier on. Emperor Yan, Xiongyan, Fu Su. Yi Qingtang had gone to the second domain before in her previous life and had naturally heard rumors related to the second domain. The names of these three people were that of the supreme powerful figures widely known in the second domain. Moreover, Emperor Yan was even the domain monarch of the second domain thousands of years ago. Chapter 1520 Age Reversal Curse 2 What is going on? Yi Qingtang was utterly shocked by the sight before her. Her eyes swept across the small children with old facial features, and a shocking thought emerged in her mind suddenly. It had already been more than 10,000 years since Jiang Yu left the Jiang family. Furthermore, Jiang Yu and his wife were very in love, and after his wife passed, he suffered an extremely huge blow and left the Jiang family not long later. The members of the Jiang family believed that Jiang Yu had ascended to the second domain, but now, Yi Qingtang could not help but doubt this rumor. Just as Yi Qingtang was overwhelmed with surprise, a well-built kid walked toward Jiang Yu with his hands behind his back and looked at him with a slight frown. Jiang Yu, no matter whether you agree or not, your destruction of the temple angered the gods and caused the gods to lay a barrier and curse to this forbidden area. We have been trapped within this barrier for thousands of years and are cursed with the age reversal curse. If this goes on, I'm afraid that in a few years' time, we will also turn from children into nothing just like the eternal emperor and the others. Age reversal curse? A trace of astonishment hit Yi Qingtang when she heard that term. The age reversal curse was a curse of the gods. The gods placed this curse on those who offended the gods, and anyone who was cursed would degenerate in the opposite direction as compared to normal people, regardless of how old or powerful they were. Even a white-haired elderly would change into a young baby in less than 100 years under the age reversal curse. This curse that was almost similar to returning to one's youth seemed extremely tempting. However, with sufficient martial realm, a cultivator's life could be extended indefinitely, and living over millions of years was not an issue. Yet, the age reversal curse would put an end to a cultivator's life. A person's age would decrease continuously, and they would grow from old age to midlife to youth and subsequently to childhood. Once they turned into an infant, they were not far from death. Furthermore, a cultivator's skill would decline alongside his degeneration. Yi Qingtang looked in shock at the old children and finally understood why she was so astounded. According to their conversation, Yi Qingtang vaguely guessed some clues. Jiang Yu was the Jiang family's domain monarch founder, and after the death of his wife, he heard that a temple in the land of infinite demons could bring his wife back to life. Thus, he kneeled and prayed in that temple for thousands of years in hopes of gaining sympathy from the gods. Nonetheless, thousands of years of sincere prayer failed to exchange for the gods' compassion. Enraged, Jiang Yu destroyed the temple, which inadvertently angered the gods. The gods then laid a curse to this forbidden land and turned this place into a true forbidden land. Emperor Yen and the rest probably entered this forbidden land during that period of time, were cursed with the age reversal curse by the gods, and were sealed behind the waterfall by the barrier. The once supreme and dominant powerful figures were now, however, trapped within this barrier while bearing the age reversal curse, where they slowly degenerated from tall and mighty figures into little children who only reached Yi Qingtang's thighs. Yi Qingtang glanced at the pile of tattered clothes within the barrier. It seemed that over the years, many powerful figures had already degenerated into infancy and then into nothing. Chapter 1521 Age Reversal Curse 3. No wonder people called this place a forbidden land where one will face absolute death. Yi Qingtang organized the rough clues and finally understood the situation before her. It was likely that ever since this group of powerful figures disappeared, this forbidden land was feared in the mainland as a place of absolute death, and no one dared to enter it. Even if a fearless person entered it by coincidence, he would probably be killed at the border by the black lions and demons, thus making it simply impossible to reach this place, much less learn about Jiang Ye's situation. After understanding everything, Yi Qingtang was extremely conflicted as she looked at the group of children before her. The powerful figures of various territories in the past are a bunch of kids now? Who can believe it if this news is spread around? Damn it. I have been locked in here for thousands of years. Why do I not see any juniors from my clan coming to rescue me? A child furrowed his brows like an old man and grunted. My hair has already turned white from the weight. Yi Qingtang's lips twitched as she looked silently at the little kid with baby hair. And he's still waiting for people to rescue him? Over the thousands of years, this place had long become forbidden to enter. If the Jiang family people were not after her life, she would never run into this damn place no matter what. Achoo! Just as Yi Qingtang was observing secretly, the leader of the 3 demonic bears that had been following her sneezed after being drenched in water. The clear sound reverberated in the cave for a long time. For a moment, all the children stopped whatever they were doing, and they uniformly looked at the corner that they ignored before. Yi Qingtang was exposed before these supreme powerful figures, just like that. The group of powerful figures who had not seen an outside person for a long time suddenly saw 3 young demonic bears and a slim lady whose body was dripping with blood. Yi Qingtang instinctively wanted to escape. She had just turned around and was about to run away when Emperor Yen, who was the most aggressive one earlier on, kicked Xiong Yen away and bolted to the edge of the array formation. Stretching his stubby hand out, he shouted furiously, "Stop right there!" This holler seemed to be full of force, but it came out from the mouth of a 4-year-old kid and sounded extremely childlike and soft. Before Emperor Yen could put on an imposing manner, he was kicked to a side by another child. The child who kicked Emperor Yen looked at Yi Qingtang with a serious expression immediately. "Junior, please stay. Don't be long-winded. Little girl, release me if you don't wish to die." Emperor Yen, who was kicked, had a fierce look on his young face. Yi Qingtang glanced at the adorably fierce kid that was Emperor Yen. Not scary at all. Strangely gives one the urge to squish his cheeks. "Junior, we have been trapped here for a long time. Can we trouble you to close this boundary so that we can get out?" Not everyone put on airs from before like Emperor Yen. Some powerful figures understood the situation clearly and asked politely. Are you all locked here by the gods? Yi Qingtang voiced her previous guess. The children nodded. Jiang Yu destroyed the temple back then. The gods were furious and laid a curse on this area and trapped us within this boundary. The truth was not far off from Yi Qingtang's guess. All of these people were locked within the boundary by the gods and were cursed with the age reversal curse. Chapter 1522 10,000 Years 1. I'm afraid I'm unable to break open the boundary the gods laid, Yi Qingtang said. So many of them were supreme powerful figures and could not do a thing about this boundary. What could she, someone at the arcane supremacy 8th heaven, do? That's not true. This boundary cannot be opened from the inside but is easily opened from the outside. You can look at the waterfall behind you. In the depths of the water under the waterfall, there is a boundary stone left behind by the gods. As long as you destroy it, this boundary will disappear, Fu Su said. The powerful figures wanted to puke blood at just the thought of the way to close this boundary. Even a middle-aged man with no martial background could easily destroy that boundary stone, but helplessly, all of them were trapped within the boundary and simply could not get out. Over these 10,000 years, they were always waiting for someone to enter this place to break the boundary stone and return them their freedom. But after 10,000 years of waiting, Yi Qingtang was the only human they saw. You all are locked here by the gods, Yi Qingtang said suddenly. Yes. The people did not really understand her. The gods locked you all here as a punishment. If I let you all out, won't the gods lock me in together as well? Yi Qingtang spoke slowly while looking at them. She did not expect to meet this group of people here, and the reason why she did not leave immediately was because first, she was curious, second, the Jiang family's domain monarch founder, Jiang Yu, was among this group of people. Yi Qingtang's current situation in the Jiang family was far from optimistic. Although the current domain monarch was impartial, there were many nasty characters in the Jiang family, and Jiang Lang and Moe probably would not have an easy life. In contrast, Jiang Yu was the most revered senior of the Jiang family. If she could rescue him out? Who are Jiang Qin and Jiang Shangyu compared to the founder? Won't they still need to yield obediently? Although Yi Qingtang did wish to rescue Jiang Yu, she did not show it right now. Anyway, her clothes were tainted red from the great demon's blood, and the Jiang family's totem could not be seen. Don't worry. The gods left after locking us here. Otherwise, we would not have been able to live until now. Everyone explained immediately in fear that Yi Qingtang would really abandon them. Are you all speaking the truth? Yi Qingtang put on a suspicious front. Absolutely. The group nodded. But even if the gods left, this place is also filled with danger everywhere. Yi Qingtang spoke slowly. Before Yi Qingtang finished her sentence, Emperor Yan frowned and said, "So long-winded. Forget it if you don't dare. You just need to tell my subordinates that I am here, and they will naturally come." Emperor Yan had a look of impatience. Yet, Yi Qingtang poured cold water on Emperor Yan. Even if I told them, I reckon they won't dare to enter. What do you mean? Emperor Yan furrowed his brows. How long have you all been here? Yi Qingtang asked him back instead of answering. Emperor Yan evidently lost all his patience and did not reply to Yi Qingtang after taking a glance at her. Rather, it was Jiang Yu who replied slowly. It has already been 10,000 years. Yi Qingtang replied. 10,000 years. Do you all know what this place is right now? Obviously the sacred land in the land of infinite demons. Yi Qingtang was silent. 10,000 years ago, this place may be the sacred land in the land of infinite demons where many powerful figures fought. But now, this place has become the forbidden area in the land of infinite demons, and almost no one dares to lay foot in it. I guess this place has turned into a cursed area because of the god's curse, and anyone who entered basically died without exception. Even if I let out the news that you all are here, I'm afraid no one will dare to enter. Yi Qingtang explained earnestly. Chapter 1523 10,000 Years 2 Little girl, don't lie to us. You're merely at arcane supremacy 8th heaven. You dare to enter this place, so why wouldn't other people? Xiongyan scoffed. If I wasn't being hunted down by people and had no other choice but to escape into this place, I would never step in here, Yi Qingtang said. Everyone noticed that Yi Qingtang was covered in blood, and she did look like she was just in a fierce battle. After thinking about how not a single soul appeared here throughout the past 10,000 years, the masses had their suspicions. We have been trapped here for a long time. If you can help us to break that boundary stone, we will definitely remember your favor, Fu Su said with a smile. It should be known that all of them were once extremely influential rulers, and countless people wanted to enter their forces. How precious would it be if one could gain a favor from these powerful figures? Sorry, I am still being hunted down by people and have no relations with you all. I've no intention to interfere in such matters and will take my leave first. Yi Qingtang acted as though she did not wish to be nosy and immediately turned around, wanting to leave. Everyone immediately became anxious when they saw that the savior they had waited 10,000 years for was about to slip away. Only this one person came after 10,000 years of waiting. Furthermore, if this place really did turn into a forbidden area as this girl had explained, wouldn't it be harder for people to come here? They had already degenerated to this stage, and if they still could not find a way to get out, all of them would turn into nothing in 10 years maximum. The group of children who initially put on airs of powerful figures were really anxious now. Wait, you said that you were being hunted down. Perhaps I can help you to get out of your predicament, Fu Su said hurriedly. Yi Qingtang turned around without concealing her sweeping glance at the group of powerful figures who were barely at her thigh. A tinge of redness tinted their cheeks when in contact with Yi Qingtang's bare gaze. Although we are affected by the curse and have been turned into this state, we still have many Dharma treasures on us that can help you to get out of your predicament. Fu Su explained in more detail. The age reversal curse caused both their bodies and skills to degenerate greatly. A smile emerged in Yi Qingtang's eyes when she heard that. She was waiting for this sentence. However, although that was what Yi Qingtang was thinking, she kept a suspicious look on her face. I haven't met you all before, and I don't even know who you all are. If you all really had such impressive Dharma treasures, why would you all be trapped here for as long as 10,000 years? Don't think of lying to me. The powerful figures were so maddened by Yi Qingtang's words that they almost vomited blood. 10,000 years ago, any one of them was a supreme figure that was highly worshipped by millions of people. Yet now, not only did this little girl not recognize them, she even doubted their skills. No matter how many Dharma treasures we have, it is useless. We already explained very clearly just now that we are simply unable to open this boundary from the inside. Although all of them were proud and arrogant figures, the only one who could rescue them was this person before them. Hence, these powerful figures who were used to acting arrogantly could only speak politely in fear that their only savior would leave. How do I know if what you all said is real? I think you all merely want to cajole me into taking a risk. I'll take my leave first. Yi Qingtang appeared as though she did not trust them and was about to walk away. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.